Thank God it's Friday. Welcome to Outnumbered, reaching you from OwelekeTV. I am Mercy Babajide, and of course, I have the gentleman to my left and the beautiful lady, but I'd like them to introduce themselves.
I am Antonia Nwokolo. Welcome to the program.
Ramsey Enoch, it's good to have you.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Yeah.
Very
Well, it's always safe to ask how are you because the way Nigeria is going right now, we do not know.
You're not really sure.
But then, do you have lights in your area? That is another subject of
You're not
discussion
in Band
later.
A.
You're not in Band A or Band B.
Banzi.
All right, viewers at home, let's get into Outnumbered today proper. I'll be starting with the Nation's newspaper. And the biggest story here for the nation is Tinubu. Tinubu is the kicker of the story, and the writer says, economy on growth path, inflation to go down. I take that story again. Economy on growth path, inflation to go down. Now, borrowing was higher a year ago, but today revenue is rising. Well, that's what they've said, and that's continued on page 2 of the Nation's newspaper this morning. And now let's take more stories. Police applicants for medical screening. Police applicants for medical screening to find out why that story is there. It's on page 3. And now to the next story. EFCC to arraign Bobrisky for abuse of Naira. That's a page 25 read. Let's not get into that yet. Troops seized 21 million liters, 210 metric tons of stolen crude. Troops seized 21 million liters, 210 metric tons of stolen crude, and that's a news page 4 of the Nation. Now, Discus gets marching order on power supply. Regulator takes hard stance, and that's a news page 5 of the Nations. Rumpus in PDP over caretaker committees and states and councils. Lagos MOT men brutalized the Nation drivers in pound vans, and that's on page 25 of the Nation's newspaper. And now let's quickly take 2 more stories. Nimet wants Nigerians to brace for heat stress or more. That's all I have to say about that. And that's a page 3 read. And now finally on the Nation, Binance Chiefs trial stalled. Binance Chiefs trial stalled, and that's a page 28 read. And for the picture stories, do well to get a copy of the Nation's newspaper as Antonia gives us more papers.
All right, on the Daily Trust newspaper, U.S. Muslim leaders reject iftar dinner with Biden as anger over Gaza persists. Now, the next headline we'll be looking at, 2024 Hajj. Narcon Airlines sign agreements for airlift. Moving on, Northern elders trade Tinubu over electricity tariff hike. And now the big story on the Daily Trust newspaper, bandits kill 7, abduct 13 family members in Kaduna, FCT. And now we have 3 riders to that story. The first rider says, release 51 hostages after 3 weeks in captivity. And then the next rider, military unveils identities of killed terrorist commanders. And finally, they must be proactive to end challenges. This is coming from experts, and the details of that is on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Now, moving on to the next headline, BUA donates 250 million naira building to Katsina Varsity. That you can find on page 22 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Barrow emerges acting speaker of ECOWAS Parliament, and that story is on page 24. And finally, police escort dies on board Kaduna Abuja train. That's on page 16 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Over to you, Ramsey.
All right, thank you very much, Tonia, for those headlines. Let's quickly get to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian has this story. It's actually the big story, and I'm starting with it. How hosting mega events fail to catalyze infrastructural development. That's the big story, and you can get on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper. Slain soldiers' arms. Ammunition in Okwama still missing, military says. Details on page 29 of the Guardian newspaper. Still from the Guardian newspaper on page 27, we have this headline which says 41 killed, 222 kidnapped, 88 million naira ransom paid in Kaduna, Niger group laments. I take that again. 41 killed, 222 kidnapped, 88 million naira ransom paid in Kaduna, Niger group laments. The details of that you can actually get on page 27 of the Guardian newspaper. Then this one says Naira firms as CBN auctions as 652 billion naira OMO bills at 21%. Details you can get on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Back to electricity again. Electricity tariff hike in crosshair as opposition intensifies. Electricity tariff hike in crosshairs as opposition intensifies. Just pick a copy of The Guardian and go straight to page 6 and you get details of that. EFCC to arraign Bobrisky for 180.7 million naira money laundering. That's been trending. And the details of that is on page 9 of the Guardian newspaper. This one says that Tinubu task ECOWAS Parliament on unity, backs direct election. Tinubu task ECOWAS Parliament on unity, backs direct election. Just pick a copy of The Guardian and you can get the details on page 3. From here, please ignore court order on remand of Lagos businessman. The details you can get on page 8 of The Guardian newspaper, and that's going to be the size of the headlines from The Guardian this morning. Just get to the vendor, pick a copy, and go through it for any of these headlines that catches your fancy. Over to you, Mercy.
Okay, now away from The Guardian, let's move to The Punch for some punchy headlines where the lead story here says 12 states plan power project anger spreads over tariff hike. 12 states plan power project anger spreads over tariff hike. And one would wonder, I mean, during Buhari's regime, they already said most of the states should generate power themselves. Whatever happened to that? Well, under that, we see have states domesticate Electricity Act seeks NERC approval to float regulatory bodies commercialize power. Now, Kano says power company 90% completed. Lagos, Nasarawa, Kebbi confirmed talks with private sector partners. I mean, that would allow most of the states to sit up tight. That story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper this morning. And now let's move to EFCC stop service of charges and Binance chief FIRS alleges. Gani Adams ready for Igbo's 500 million naira legal battle. That's coming from his aide, and that's a page 7 read. How I gave birth a Lagos BRT woman. That's a page 6 read. Now, debt servicing Gobs, Ondo, Oshun, 2 others allocations. Debt servicing Gobs, Ondo, Oshun, 2 others allocations. And that's a page 21 read. Let's move to the next story where Kano government charges Ganduje wife with $413,000 over 1 billion naira bribery. Everybody knows that Ganduje is always called Gandola. But then to read more on that, it's on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Now, manufacturers lose 1.5 trillion naira to FX crisis in 6 months. That's a lot. And that's coming from federal government to issue domestic dollar bonds June. And that's on page 21 of the Punch. 141 terror cases, 214 kidnappings recorded in 8 weeks. Well, that is definitely part of what we're talking about today after the break. And that's on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. And that's all I'll take for national dailies. And after the break, we'll be talking about banditry and rate of kidnappings in Nigeria. Stay tuned.
Follow us on our social media handles at OwelekeTV. Visit our website at www.oweleke.tv for a thrilling journey. Oweleke TV, rising star at the fairground.
Welcome back. You're still on Outnumbered from Oweleke TV. And now we will be moving forward, but we'll be taking it from national dailies. That's the Daily Trust newspaper, where the biggest story there screaming for attention says bandits kill 7, abduct 13 family members in Kaduna FCT. Apparently, the first time I read the story, I didn't see the FCT matter. Not like there's one state that is better off than the other states in Nigeria. But one would beg, if kidnappings persist in the Federal Capital Territory, what does that say for the whole of Nigeria? Well, joining me today to talk about this is, of course, my colleagues, Tonya to my right and Ramsey to my left. So, Tonya, I'd like to get your own overview about banditry in Nigeria and abduction especially. Does it mean we are no longer safe? Now, they said they've released 51 hostages after 3 weeks in captivity. You cannot even begin to wonder the trauma that most of these people go through right now.
Yeah, it's so sad to see this. Banditry, kidnappings, they've been since the beginning of 2024, it's more like they've been on a steady rise. Every day on the news, there is one case of abduction, there's one case of kidnapping in different parts of Nigeria, not just in Kaduna and the FCT. And sometime on Outnumbered, I mentioned that the FCT has actually become the FCT in terms of insecurity, because we see rising cases on a daily, and it looks like a little to nothing is being done about it to safeguard the lives of citizens in Nigeria. And it's so sad to see. But now that the military has unveiled the identities of the terrorist commanders, I strongly hope that they will follow this through and bring to book whoever, those people that are in charge of all of this. Because now that the commanders have been, once the shepherd is taken away, the ship will scatter. And definitely they'll be able to pick out those people who are working under them, because we can't continue living like this. Nigerians cannot continue living as though they are refugees in their own country. It's not proper.
Okay, all right. My question to you, Ramsey, there's this saying that says if insecurity persists in a country for more than 24 hours, then that means the federal government is in the know. Do you agree with this notion, especially in the case of insecurity and banditry in Nigeria?
Well, I think let me take it from this angle. When you say the federal government is in the know, they should be aware that there is this issue in the country, or you want to know if they are part of
the part of it. Yeah.
Okay, as it is right now, I think some of the good news we've had recently is the fact that some persons have been named, okay, as financiers. All right, if you're a financier of kidnap, banditry and all of that, it means you are a part of it. But then one thing that is not clear to the public is what happens to these people, apart from just naming them, because you come out to name these people and at the end of the day, there is no follow-up to what happens to them. Like the president came up to say, well, ransom shouldn't be paid anymore. They shouldn't pay ransom anymore when the students were kidnapped in Kaduna State. But then they were released after a while. We never heard if ransom was paid or not. I think just Tuesday, okay, 5 persons were killed because the kidnapper said the ransom paid, okay, was not up to what they demanded, and they released the others, and some other persons were paid. If the president is coming out to say, well, ransom shouldn't be paid anymore, then we should see the security chiefs rise to the occasion. One of the things that actually came to my mind, one of the things that was giving me joy initially when this administration was coming up, is that they have a problem in their face to tackle, which should be the first thing that this administration should look into, which is insecurity. Because people can't go to farms anymore, and we have shortage of food. People are hungry in this country, and we heard herdsmen and all of that. Sometimes you hear people saying, these kidnappers, these terrorists are not even from this country, allegedly. But then nothing is being done. We keep hearing, okay, and nothing is being done. Security chiefs are there. When you know how it happens, as soon as the president is coming into office, the first thing he do is, okay, whoever that is the security chief will have to go. New ones are being appointed. What is the mandate given to these security chiefs? We keep hearing about this insecurity on a daily basis, and it pricks my heart.
And then one would
if it doesn't happen to you, you wouldn't know how it feels. When people go to
it
village and they clear the whole
happen to
village,
you
they kill people,
It doesn't have
pregnant
to happen
women,
to
and
you first,
everyone. You know, we are feeling the
exactly,
heat.
not just feeling the heat. To wrap up, one would wonder with the number of times that the Senate has called on the service and security chiefs to, of course, ask them questions. One would think that everybody would be on their 10 toes and everybody would want to move ASAP and say, let's put an end to the level of insecurity in Nigeria. Because, I mean, there are too many things going on, and to add insecurity to it is just like you just want to eradicate the whole of Nigeria. But then we do hope that the federal government does something as soon as possible, because whether we like it or not, the first job of the federal government is to protect its citizens. And then if you do not protect the citizen, you would not have anybody to rule over. So we're imploring that something is done ASAP. So thank you for staying with us today on Outnumbered. I remain Miss Babajide, and this is where we draw the curtain for today. See you same time, same station. Bye. See you tomorrow.